About me, I mentioned before, I'm from Johannesburg originally. Grew up there and everything, studied there, went to varsity, and then worked for a couple of years and decided to head down to the bush, which was always been a passion of mine personally. I am based at Pinder Private Game Reserve in the northeastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. I'll show you a map shortly, just to orientate you a little bit. Yeah, on the northeastern side of the country and really close to the ocean. So we're approximately 8 kilometers as the crow flies straight to the ocean. And just by joining us, you guys are contributing a lot to both the conservation of the reserve, as well as the community development in the surrounding areas. At this strange time when traditional tourism and funding is all but stopped. So just beforehand, I'd like to thank you for that. And then just with regards to the safari itself, we're going to be watching this safari is from our Wild Watch Live Safaris, which is in partnership with Wild Earth. And I've chosen it just because there's a nice variety of animals and some very interesting interactions as well as behavior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the safari from my device. I'm going to screen share it with all of you, so we're watching exactly the same thing. And the video quality and feed can be variable, unfortunately. This is due in parts because of signal from my side as well as your side, and as well as the original feed, which was live in the field. And it's a challenge that we're constantly working on. But the guides in the safari will be talking quite a lot, and most of the time we'll be listening to their narration. But I'll also pause at other times and discuss things a little bit more detail. And of course, my role is to add value where I can, and also answering all your questions. And with the questions, I believe we discussed that we're going to mute all of our microphones. If you do have a question for me, please unmute yourself and just get my attention. If you would not like to do that, perhaps type a little message in the chat box, and Lynn will relay that message to me. But yeah, like I mentioned, we're going to mute all our microphones so we don't end up talking over each other. I believe it would be fine if 6 people left their videos on, or you're welcome to all leave your videos off, just so that we can, I can see the screen nice and clearly. And if you're having any trouble with the volume, just let me know and I'll adjust it for you. But from there, I think what I want to do is, let's go and join the guides and start our safari together. So I'm just going to share my screen with all of you. And let's get going. So I just want to pause here just to show you the map. The 2 reserves where we'll be exploring this evening are both on the northeastern side of the country. So Pinder Private Game Reserve is right where this little black dot is here. Like I mentioned, really close to the ocean. And just above us there in the Kruger National Park, we're going to be exploring some of Ngala, which is based in the Timbavati and along the Timbavati River. So these are just the 2 areas where we're going to be exploring this evening.
Dino, sorry, it's Lynn.
Oh, Lynn.
I'm not quite sure what's happened with the sharing of the video, but we're seeing the toolbars in blue. Maybe you need to just go out and reshare, please.
Strange. Sorry about that. Give me a moment.
Sorry, guys.
Lynn, just let me know there. How is that?
Much better. Thank you.
All right. All right, let's try that again. But before we get started, I hope everyone has a drink in hand, considering that it's Friday, and maybe a snack with you, because a safari is not the same without a drink and a snack. All right, so let's get going.
A very warm welcome to your very own live safari from the African bush. We are on and beyond Ngala, and we have just got this beautiful, beautiful scene of this male lion walking through the morning mist. So look at the scene that we have. Look at the ground. That's mist that's rising from the river. And this male lion has just crossed the river and he's walking. Looks like he's smelling the scent of what could be the rest of the pride that he's trying to find. Look at him. He's just been spotted by some impala and they're alarm calling. So he's just paused and just look at how full that belly is. A bit of scrape marking. Let me see if I can try and reposition again.
So this is amazing. We've got this male lion and you can see it's a beautiful setting with the mist and everything in the morning. Currently, we've also been having quite a lot of mist where we are here on Pinder. This is at Ngala. And to see a male lion like this is quite a common sight. You would associate a male lion being with the pride and a lot of other lions together, but the role of the male lion is, of course, to protect the pride. That's his main role. And what he may have been doing is patrolling his territory of his pride and scent marking and roaring just to let any other lions know that this is his territory. And we can see that he's actually scraping his feature in the ground. And what he would do is he would scent mark there, and by scraping the ground like that, he would really get his scent to mix with the soil and thereby retaining that scent for much longer. So, and if everyone has a look, his belly is extremely round and distended. So it looks like he's had a really nice big meal. Perhaps whilst he was out on his territorial patrol, he may have made a kill, and that's why he's so full like this.
Let me see if I can try and reposition again. And to make things even better, we've got the sun that looks like it's threatening to peer just above the clouds. So we could have him and the sunrise in the same shot. That would just be the best way to start. We've just found the rest of the pride. Listen. No ways. Can you believe it? And that was just the most incredible thing to experience. So far, I've just seen this one female who's off to the right of the vehicle, but the rest are, oh, there we go, up ahead. It's actually making it quite difficult to spot them because of the mist that we have this morning. But they're lying in the mist. One's up and walking away from us. Go more left. Okay, zoom in, dead center. There we go. There we go. And look at that one. That one's got its head up and it's looking straight down towards those impalas. One female and the male that we were following just to the right of us. But the rest of the pride looks like it might be in that mist belt. And the sun is coming up as we speak. Look at that, those are the two adults. It's so rare to see them playful with one another. But I just have to show you how beautiful this is this morning. Okay, here we go. And I mean, all of them are spread out over about, maybe about 20 meters. They're up and they're playful. This is just incredible.
So quite an incredible scene there in this morning, with all that mist and these lions. That male lion just met up with a pride. There was some impala alarm calling, something that often leads us to predators like lions, leopards, sometimes hyenas and cheetah. And this is one of the main prides of Ngala or Timbavati Reserve or concession. Some people may know it for their white lions, quite unique to Ngala and this part of the Kruger National Park. I believe there are 2 white lions in this area. So quite amazing to have all these lions around us and to hear them roaring. I mean, just an incredible sound, and one that really stays with you if you do get to experience it in person. But from here, I think what we're going to carry on, and we're going to join Eric where he starts looking for wild dogs. The lions typically, as the sun rises and it becomes lighter and warmer, they tend to settle down to rest for the remaining of the day. So we're going to leave these lions and we're going to join the same guide, Eric, where he starts looking for some wild dogs.
We've actually had quite a cool period of looking at tracks on the roads. And so we've just done a loop and we were just about to get to the waterhole when we saw some very interesting tracks on the road over here. And I hope you can see it. It's a little bit faint. And I think it's just because the wind has been blowing a lot. So it's made the tracks look not as fresh as they are. And so it's right in the middle of my circle that I've just drawn over here. And if I were to outline it, we've got a back pad like this. We've got 4 toes like that. And then we've got 2 claw marks that you can just see over there. And so the claw marks indicates that it's part of the canine family, or at least either a hyena or potentially a wild dog. And if you just look at the sides of the track, quite thin and long. And then the back pad is really small in comparison to the toes. And the most pronounced feature are the 2 middle toes like that. So these stand out a lot, which means that this isn't hyena, it's wild dogs, which is very exciting. And we've been seeing a pack of 3 wild dogs around Ngala for the last week or so, sporadically. The tracks are heading in this direction. And so they could have even gone down towards that exact same waterhole that we are heading towards. So I think what we'll do is head towards that waterhole, and then if there's nothing and no sign of those lions, we might quickly drive towards these beautiful big open areas to the eastern part of the reserve, and maybe that's where they are going to hunt for the morning.
So I thought I'd just pause there. Eric was describing the tracks of the wild dog really well. And unfortunately, just because of the light and the angle, we couldn't see those tracks very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my video for a second. I've got my tracking manual with me. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but I'm just going to hold it up to the screen here. And I've got some wild dog tracks just over here. And you can see clearly that there's 2 pad marks right at the base of the pad. So 2 there. And you can see those 2 pronounced toes that Eric was describing there. And each of the toes have got little claw marks right at the top of them. So that's exactly how we would know that they're wild dog tracks. And there are a few animals that you could confuse with a wild dog, one being actually a cheetah. But there's a very distinguishing feature that allows us to tell the difference between the 2. Similar tracks in kind of size and shape, although if you look at the base of the pad, you can see there are 3 distinguished lobes to that pad, and that tells us instantly that it's a cat. You can see the toes look similar with the claw marks, and quite unique to the cheetah. They do have claws that are not retractable, unlike other cats. So that's how we could tell the difference between the 2 of them. And there are also hyenas around in the area, although their tracks look very different. So those are just the ways that we can tell the difference between the two animals. So let's carry on. Let's carry on with Eric.
It's actually, the wind seems to be dropping a lot, which means that I don't need my blankie anymore. It's not that cold. Just driving along the road closest to the river. So the river is now on the left of us, and we're heading back east. This is the area now that we'll really slow down and start searching properly. So looking on the road for tracks, looking on every junction to see if these animals have used these road networks as like a game path. So we'll be driving nice and slowly. I'm up for a challenge. I enjoy looking for wild dogs. It's one of the hardest ones to find, obviously, because they just move so quickly and they move huge distances in one day. But hopefully, I mean, they've come from up ahead of us. So it's maybe seems counterintuitive heading away from where the tracks are going towards. But you never know. These wild dogs, they move in quite odd directions sometimes. Okay, so we're not too far from that waterhole. So instead of driving very slowly looking for tracks now, I think it's better just to increase our speed a bit, just so we can cover ground. And like I was saying, it's these wild dogs tracks were heading behind us, but they could change direction at any moment. Remember, this is pretty much the only water source within this whole area. And so the animals will be moving from all different directions at some point today to try and have something to drink. So if the wild dogs are looking for something to hunt, you know, they might be doing zigzags in this area, looking for nice big herds of impala, maybe flush out a steenbok or a grey duiker that's somewhere in these areas. There's also the added bonus of us maybe seeing if we can catch up towards where those lions were. So there's another junction, just a quick little slowdown. A look on the road. Apart from hyena tracks, not too much else. Cool. Yeah, let's carry on. Different area, and they are all lying on the road. A couple of them have got very, very full bellies. And that one that's trotting towards us, look how swollen she is. She's got a slight little limp, and there's lots of blood around their faces. This is amazing.
I thought I'd just pause over here. How awesome that Eric managed to find these wild dogs. I mean, they could have been anywhere. You heard how he described their movement patterns and how they cover extremely large distances, hunting and moving around. You can see he mentioned there was a lot of blood on their faces. Have a look at between this wild dog's ears, actually. You can see it's quite red in color there. So, but seeing that and how distended their bellies are, they must have had a very successful hunt this morning. And just to give you a little bit more of an idea with the tracking process that Eric was describing, like he mentioned, it's good to check roads for tracks of animals. Essentially, the reserves are mostly split by roads in some sort of way. So you can check the roads surrounding areas. And if you're lucky enough to find a track, then you can methodically see which areas they cross into and keep circling and seeing if the tracks cross out perhaps on the other side. And if they do, then you would move to the next area. And by doing that, eventually, if the tracks are fresh enough, actually find the animals like Eric managed here. And you can imagine with animals walking and covering lots of distance, roads would provide quite a useful mode of movement. You can imagine them running through really thick bush. It would create quite a lot of resistance to them, perhaps potential for them to get injured or stepping on thorns or something like that. Their pads are really soft. So you can imagine moving on a road would be a lot easier, and it's quite open. So they'd have a really nice field of view or vision from the road as well. So luckily for us, the roads do provide a bit of assistance with finding animals in a sense. But let's go back to these wild dogs.
So they must have just caught something, and it looks like they're either settling down. There's a couple of them that are still trotting off into the clearings. It only seems like a few of them are very, very full and bloody, and so it might have been something small that they caught. And so they have started to get up, and they're very, very playful. They don't seem to be on a mission yet. The general direction is away from us, so down the road, but they are spending a lot of time playing around. And if you turn your volumes up, you can hear that very high-pitched squeaking noise. That's all of them communicating with one another. It's incredible. And so we've managed to do a count, and there's definitely 7 of them. So there's 7 of them so far. I've seen 4 females and 1 male. So there's 2 that I'm not too sure of yet. But 1 year, 1 alpha female gave birth to 17 pups in one go. I would love to see something like that. Okay, I'm going to move forward a little bit. And there's a few of these wild dogs that we can try and identify. And there's one that's got a very striking white bum and rump. And so that might be helpful in the future if we see them again. Otherwise, we try and look for distinguishing patterns around their faces, around their bodies. So things like white markings or no white markings. They've been playing around with one another. They've been spending a lot of time. You can see almost each individual's been going from one end to another. Just in my element. So I'm so happy that we get to see this. They might be, see now they're on the move again. And it looks like they're moving with a bit more intent. They're in a single file. And we will try and follow them for as long as we possibly can. It is quite tricky. This area is quite dense. We found a beautiful pack of wild dogs that we found this morning. We just thought that we would come and sit and wait for them to get up and active. And it's not looking too promising yet, only because all of them are very, very full-bellied after their delicious morning hunt that they managed to catch. But the cool thing is that we know that somewhere around here, at least from this morning, that there were some hyenas. And so this is exactly what we were hoping to see, is a hyena rock up to these wild dogs. And this hyena's not that interested, actually. Maybe it doesn't want to mess with them. What's so funny is these wild dogs saw the hyena coming and they hadn't reacted at all. But he's literally just going to walk straight past them, and he'll keep doing this. So I don't know if it's a she or a he, but it will basically just keep watching the wild dogs to try and catch them on the move, and he'll do all his best to try and follow the rest of the pack as they're moving around because they are so successful. And I think what it could have been doing was just sniffing down on the grass, looking for any droppings of these wild dogs. It looks like it's a young hyena, so it's not going to mess around too much with these wild dogs. But also see if you can look at the grass around it. The grass is blowing straight to the hyena, which means the wild dog's scent is getting pushed towards it. And a lot of the time, when these hyenas are following the wild dogs, they lose sight of them, and they literally just follow on the scent trail. And And so they try and use the wind as much as they can. And those big, strong, powerful noses.
So quite typical behavior by a hyena, covering large distances, following scent of other carnivores, things like wild dog, cheetah, lions, leopards, and hopefully scavenging or getting a morsel out of the kills that they make. But unfortunately for this hyena, it seems like it's a little bit late. Perhaps maybe it smelt some of the blood or some of the scent from the carcass on these wild dogs, and perhaps that's what brought it in. But hyenas, very interesting creatures and very well adapted to survival. I mean, they're very successful as well, hunting wise. Wild dogs, these wild dogs would have a very high hunting success rate, the highest out of all the large predators. And hyenas are not too far behind, funny enough. Most people think they just scavenge, but they're also very, very successful hunters. And they actually use quite a similar hunting style with the wild dogs. They share that style, with like long distance endurance running and running their prey down to exhaustion, essentially. But also quite different looking to the wild dogs, just in their anatomy and their shape. Much smaller hindquarters, and large, really muscular necks and heads and front, and that's very well adapted for getting into carcasses and pulling off pieces, and also carrying large pieces or bones around and away from the carcass. Of sometimes if you do find remnants of a carcass and you see that the bones are all scattered amongst the area, it's almost certain that it was hyenas that were involved. Whereas the wild dogs, they would tend to take the prey down, feed on it as quickly as possible, feeding on the softer meat and pieces, and then leaving the area, just because they're not the largest predators, and they would attempt to stay away and avoid conflict at all costs. So that's also some of the ways you can tell the difference between the two species, just with regards to seeing evidence of if they've been around. But if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask me, as well as you can also send a message on the chat. Just feel free. That's also why I'm here. But let's carry on listening and see what Eric has to say.
1 second, Pino.
Yes.
We've got a question. We've got a question from Ferguson. He's asking if hyenas are the vultures of the dogs.
Essentially, the vultures of the dogs. So yeah, I mean, they really rely on scavenging quite a lot, Ferguson.
And I suppose the Lion King didn't help them.
No, it didn't. I think it's quite sad, actually, how they portrayed hyenas in The Lion King, because they're really interesting creatures, and they've got such a really special and intricate social dynamic as well. But yeah, they really portrayed them quite badly in that movie. And then, I mean, it really didn't do them very well. But like I said, they do rely on scavenging a lot. If they can, they will overpower other predators and take their prey. But things like lions and leopards are also very well known for scavenging. So they're not the only ones. They're not the only vultures of the predators, so to say.
And I suppose
that answers your question.
Then there's an opportunity for somebody to share the hyena story.
The hyena story?
Yes. So there's an opportunity for somebody to tell a movie about how hyenas are not just scavengers and vultures of the wild.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge opportunity there. A huge opportunity. But there's quite a funny story I can tell all of you. I left my slops or my slippers outside my room a few days ago, and I came back and one of them was completely shredded to pieces. So a hyena had come onto my porch, taken my slops, and just, I don't know what interested in it or what they smelled like, but it proceeded to bite my whole slop into pieces. So yeah, we don't actually have any fences around our lodges. So animals are able to move through the lodges quite freely, except for the larger animals like elephants and rhinos. We have had leopards and hyenas moving through the camp quite frequently. And I do see Nico made a comment about the smell of the slops. Yeah, they must have smelled quite delicious for that hyena.
Yeah.
All right.
I've got 2 follow-up questions for you.
Yes.
About hyenas. So the first question is, are hyenas lazy or are they actually smart?
So, okay, they are very smart creatures. They are very attuned to spotting weakness in animals and sickness, things like that. They can also remember habits of certain animals. So they're very, very smart, much smarter than most people would think. So yeah, they are really intelligent. They're very underestimated creatures, Ferguson. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question. And the follow-up question?
Ferguson has forgotten.
You forgot. Okay, that's fine.
Caitlin's got a question on the chat, and she wants to know why wild dogs are so endangered.
Why they're so endangered. All right. So with wild dogs, as I mentioned earlier, they are not very large. So they do get, their population numbers do decrease because of other larger predators, such as lions and leopards and hyenas. Although this hyena doesn't pose a huge threat because it's one and it's quite young, a large clan of hyenas would pose a really huge threat to wild dogs as well as their pups. So that's often where the numbers decrease, is when the wild dogs are younger and they can't really defend themselves because they're quite small. So between lions, hyenas, and leopards. And then again, wild dogs are quite well known for actually escaping reserves and digging under fences. So that also does affect them. I mean, they really occupy huge habitats and territories. And of course, once we put a fence around a reserve, which we need to nowadays, and they escape, it's often really tough to recover them. And then of course there are roads and people around. So these are just some of the factors for their numbers declining. Caitlin, I hope that answers your question. All right, I think maybe there was another question.
Yes.
That female, yes. Is it true that male and female hyenas are difficult to tell apart? Yes, very much so. At external appearance, they look pretty much exactly the same. Even their genitalia is very similar looking. And you can only really tell a female once she's given birth to pups, and you can perhaps see the suckle marks on the nipples or perhaps something like that. Apart from that, it's very tough to tell. Often the female hyenas are a bit bigger than males as well. So that's a few things you can look for, although it is really tough to tell the difference between them. And timber, I see, since hyenas have long endurance as all right to hunting, what part of their bodies play a huge role in that endurance being sustained? All right, very good question. You would not think that they would be very, very good at running. I'm just going to see if I can go back a little bit just so you can see the hyena's build and body. All right, that's a bit better. But it's actually got to do with their muscle type. So I'm not sure if you know, but there are different muscle types. You get explosive muscle and you get endurance muscle. So there's been muscle biopsy taken from hyenas, and they do possess the type that works in favor of endurance. And strangely enough, their gait. So they do have a really strange build, but the way that they run is apparently really energy what was the word? Efficient, like energy and efficient. So they're able to maintain quite a high speed, approximately around 50 kilometers to 60 kilometers an hour for a really prolonged period of time, up to 4 or 5 kilometers. And that's just because of that strange gait or their running pattern, as well as that their actual anatomy and physiology. So those are some of the ways. And interestingly enough, the prey animals that they do feed on, often their endurance is nowhere near to that of a hyena. So they actually would not be able to run anymore. And the hyenas from there would be able to catch up with them. So yeah, Temba, I hope that answers your question.
No, thanks for that. I was actually just surprised about the different muscle types or muscle groups.
Yeah, they got really strange creatures. So also, Temba, lots of people think they do look like dogs in a way, but they are far less closely related to dogs than what they are to cats. And actually they're more, funny enough, and they're actually more closely related to things like mongooses and badgers and things like that than what they are to dogs. So really strange creatures. They really are a species of their own. I'm like hyena ambassador here today. but yeah, very interesting creatures. All right, if everyone is happy to, I think let's carry on watching.
Straight past him, and he'll keep doing this. So I don't know if it's a she or a he, but it will basically just keep watching the wild dogs to try and catch them on the move, and he'll do all his best to try and follow the rest of the pack as they're moving around because they are so successful. And I think what it could have been doing was just sniffing down on the grass, looking for any droppings of these wild dogs. It looks like it's a young hyena, so it's not going to mess around too much with these wild dogs. But also see if you can look at the grass around it. The grass is blowing straight to the hyena, which means the wild dog's scent is getting pushed towards it. And a lot of the time, when these hyenas are following the wild dogs, they lose sight of them, and they literally just follow on the scent trail. And so they try and use the wind as much as they can. And those big, strong, powerful noses. It's getting braver. See, one wild dog's just picked up its head. 2 wild dogs have just picked up their head. 3, 4 now. As they see it moving away, they probably consider it not to be too much of a threat. And it's just something that wild dogs have to tolerate. They can't chase away every single hyena that they see, otherwise they'll spend their whole life chasing the hyenas and they won't do anything else. And so, these hyenas won't pester them if there's no food. The wild dogs know that. And so instead of wasting their energy chasing constantly these hyenas away, they'll rather just rest and save it for when they really need to work together and chase the hyenas off. So they seem pretty happy resting here. There's a water hole not too far away that I want to quickly check just to see if we see anything interesting. And then I'm going to come back here and wait for them to get active. We literally just found this very interesting little critter, which we don't see at this time of year. And it's a dung beetle. And it's a huge, huge, huge dung beetle. And it's completely hollow. If I tap it, it makes a very hollow sound, which means that there's no more insides in it left. So this is just the hard exoskeleton of the dung beetle. And you can see, it's all rigid and things, but these are the big front legs that it uses to push the ball behind. So it basically will create a ball. Okay, let's quickly go over to Pinder. Apparently there's some action going on there.
Okay guys, we've just raced here and we found this female cheetah with her 2 cubs. They're right here next to us, and 2 male cheetahs just came out of nowhere and is now harassing this female. Oh my goodness, listen to her calling there and like trying to fight them off. Look how she's getting onto her back and using all 4 her paws and claws. Okay, here comes the cubs. Maybe they'll come into frame now. You'll see them, they're just trying to come a little bit closer. Listen to their sounds. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the cubs come. Oh my goodness, hopefully these males don't do too much to the cubs. Let's see what happens. She will protect them with all she has. See how she's trying to like keep them away. Let's hope they leave her alone. They were obviously harassing her just because they are quite territorial, but now you can see they're smelling the ground where she was lying down, probably trying to figure out if this female is a threat to them, but also if whether or not she's maybe an estrus. Seems like they're settling down now. Let's hope that the cubs are okay. The cubs are now snuggling up to her. Everyone has settled down now. For now, she's not even growling that much or anything like that. She's not going to try and run away, because if she tries to run away now, the males are going to try and pounce onto her. So she's trying to be as neutral as possible. Let's see, here come the one male's coming a bit closer. The cubs will run away, and she will definitely protect the cubs from these 2 males. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Okay, he's just coming closer. See how his head is down low? So he's trying to make himself quite big, trying to arch his back a little bit. You can hear her making her noises. And even the cubs are also calling. And this is trying to be as assertive as possible and trying to make themselves as least aggressive as they can. Look at that. See how the cubs are just calling towards them, almost telling them, please don't do anything to us. What an incredible scene. Okay, let's see what happens. He seems like he wants to just sit down. See how the one male is just smelling the ground there, trying to figure out what this female is all about. Okay, one male's moving off. Let's hope the brother follows. This is so insane, and this just, all these sounds that we've heard now, it just it shows you the different sounds, yeah, all the different sounds that they have and so on. And exactly, they do sound like birds. It's so incredible. Those squeaking sounds are the tiny little cubs, and then you can hear the little bit louder one, that's mum. Okay, let's see if we can creep a little bit closer. Maybe you can hear the sound a bit better. I'm taking it very slow, and I think literally right here. I think let's stop right here. We don't want to go closer than that. So a male cheetah is actually known to sometimes even kill female cheetahs, especially if they have young cubs, because they'll try and harass it and harass the female to mate with them, and to the point where she might be killed. Oh, look how she's calling straight towards his face. Oh my goodness. She is just pleading to him to not do anything. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that, but there is like a growl, like almost when cats fight. And that is the male making that sound. That is incredible. I'm so glad that you can all hear that sound. It's like they're settling down a little bit. The males do come closer and growl at them every now and then. But as you can hear, there's a lot of vocalization happening here. I'm just going to keep quiet for a little bit. Maybe you can hear the growling from the males. Listen to that. And you can hear the youngsters giving the squeaking sounds as well. So, like I said earlier, all these sounds and everything is pretty stressful, not just because of these two males being around here, but you can imagine these cheetahs are making a lot of noise now, so any other predators like leopard or lion or even a hyena will be maybe coming into this area to come and see what's happening here. So let's hope everything is far away and they don't really hear this or anything like that, and they'll be safe. But see how the youngsters are now huddling together? They do move every now and then the males kind of get up. Let's see what happens. Oh, look at that calling. How cute are these two youngsters though? Oh my goodness. There you can see the ones like grooming his sibling a little bit. Maybe they're a little bit wet from the bit of rain that we've had. Mrs. Sheep. Oh. Listen to that. So he's kind of lost interest quite a bit, and I'm very happy to see that, because it's just his brother that has to stop has to lose interest. Then they might be able to slink away and get away. It is super intense, and they are calling constantly. You can hear that very high-pitched call there. There's a lot of sounds coming out here, so you never know, something might come and interact with them. There was some lion tracks in the area as well. Let's hope that does not cause the lions to come into this area either. Let's hope these two males move off and they can stop calling. Oh, it's starting to rain quite hard now. I think we are going to have to get out of this rain. Maybe come back to you a little bit later.
Wow, quite a tense situation with these cheetah. I mean, we've got these two territorial male cheetah, quite large males in comparison to the mother. Male cheetah will often form these coalitions, more than one, and that gives them a really great opportunity to defend their territory for a longer period of time, as well as catching larger prey. And this mother is doing really well so far with these two cubs. They're probably around the age of 4 to 5 months old, just judging by their coloration and the length of fur on their necks. So she has really done well so far with these cubs. And also with the situation as well, she's staying really neutral, and she's not running away, and she's keeping her cubs really close by, thereby giving them the best chance, and also not giving the males too much of a reason to come forward and to attack her. But really tense situation. Male cheetah are really protective of their territory, as well as their genes. Something similar to male lions, where if they find a female with cubs that aren't theirs, they would actually get rid of them so that they could mate with the female, and that they could reproduce with her, and she could come into estrus much quicker. So this is also something that we are really stressing about here with these cheetahs. But so far, like we mentioned, they've done really well. These two male cheetahs in particular, quite a special story with them. Their mother was killed by lions when they were about 8 months old only, so a couple of months older than these cubs. And that sort of coincided with the lambing season in spring, or December time. And we hadn't seen them for a really long time. And months and months later, we actually found them again. They popped up, and they'd grown quite substantially, and they had, of course, taken advantage of hunting those lambs when they were still quite young, and that seemed to give them quite an advantage in life. So they're about 2.5 years now, and they've done really well for themselves, and also established quite a large territory in the southern parts of Pinder. But like I mentioned, really stressful. You can just imagine with these cubs, I'm sure they hadn't really encountered males like this before. We're not sure if these males sired these cubs or if they're the fathers, but you can just imagine how stressed they would be in this situation. And now it's started to rain. It's like complete drama and so dramatic. Do you have any questions there, Tove?
So I'm just reading the messages in the chat box, and Dawn is saying, "Oh, my
Yes.
heart," and Susie is saying that it was too stressful. I completely concur with that. Oh my gosh. And I think just the strength of mummies, right? And faking it till you make it. Even if you're scared, you must act like you're okay and like not show that you're
Exactly.
terrified.
I mean,
That was quite stressful.
Look at this mother. Look at the mother in this situation. Eyes closed, like,
oh my gosh,
doing
that
really
was
well
very
to
stressful.
stay calm. But also, how incredible, everyone, were those sounds that these cheetah were making. I mean, I saw there was a comment about their cat coming into the room.
Yes,
to
that was
investigate. That's crazy. But those strange little chirping sounds, so that's communication between cheetahs. That's how they would communicate. Those little chirping sounds. They actually cannot roar. They're not classified as true big cats, cheetahs, because they aren't able to roar. And also the strange growling, almost like purring sounds that the males were making. Quite a strange sound. I mean, not many people do get to hear cheetahs vocalizing or making noises. So really interesting to just see this whole situation playing out. And I see there's a question, can a cheetah eat a human? And I don't think there's any records of that ever happening before. Cheetah have their preferable prey of really small, quite nimble antelope like impala, nyala, gazelles, things like that. And I don't think they have ever been inclined to catching a person before. Also, cheetah really, I'm not sure if you saw while those males were standing, they're quite slenderly built animals, quite petite, and that plays all in advantage for them with their speed. So they can't really afford to get injured at all. If they do get injured, it's going to really hamper them and they may not survive. So all of those factors together, I don't think that's ever happened before. And then how do you have the strength not to get involved? So that's a really good question. And because cheetah are also highly endangered animals, they are also on the IUCN red list for highly endangered animals. And with cheetah themselves, we aren't really allowed to intervene if it's interactions between cheetahs. Although if we do see lions or leopard or something stalking, especially female cheetahs, but now we've also been given the go-ahead to look after males, but we can interject and we can actually chase the cheetahs off, just because we had a huge meeting and we looked at the population dynamics in South Africa and they're really low. And so now we've been given the go-ahead to really do anything we can to protect the cheetah. But in this instance, this was, I think, prior to that. But like I mentioned, between cheetah themselves, we do try to leave them to sort them out by themselves. So yeah, any other questions before we carry on?
Yeah, one question
Yes.
from me is, have you seen the cubs post the incident? What happened after the rain? Because now we've got FOMO and we're probably going to need...
wasn't there.
We're probably going to need a spa day after this.
100%. But let's see. I mean, let's carry on watching and we'll see what unfolds.
Awesome.
All right. Any other questions before we carry on? No? All right. Feel free to stop me at any point if you would like to. I'm just going to go a little bit further ahead.
Warm welcome to all our viewers that are tuning into this virtual safari. And currently we're watching a whole herd of elephants here at and beyond Ngala. Now it's so beautiful. There's quite a few of them at the moment. So I've counted at least 30 elephants that have been moving through, but you can see there's one scratching itself. But have a look this elephant just off to the left here, you'll notice it looks like quite a big female with the one tusk, especially the right tusk is a little bit skew there. But you'll see how she's just taking a bit of dust and like flicking it onto herself. You can also see with her body, it does look like there's little patches of dark on it. So it's most likely that somewhere along the line, she probably went past the water, maybe had a good drink and then flicked. Oh, look at the little baby under her belly. You might notice there's a very small baby just underneath her. So let's spend some time here and see if we can see that baby coming out. I think she's going to move right in front of us. I'm just going to lean out of the way so I'm not in the way, but you might just see the little legs moving in between mom's legs. And also if you look at the mom, do you notice like all the different, it almost looks like bits and pieces of some material on her back. So that's probably as she was flicking dust onto her back, there's a bit of leaves on there. And even look at the baby, how wet the baby is. And I don't know even if it was him or maybe as he was trying to drink with mom and she was blowing water onto herself, she basically just covered him with water. There's just so many elephants. There's actually more coming off from the left. I can count at least another 10 elephants. It looks to me that the whole herd is moving off from the left to the right. So I just want to make sure that they don't surround us. But if they stay where they are now, we might just have this beautiful view of all of these elephants moving in the sun in front of us. So that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, it does look like they have changed direction, so we're perfectly safe where we are now. But if we do need to move to get out of the way, we can definitely do that.
So that everyone notice quite a large group of elephants, some big ones, some small ones. So this is typical of an elephant breeding herd, which is comprised of lots of interrelated females. So mothers, daughters, aunts, sisters, cousins, and they would all split into their own little, what we call family groups. So those interrelated females would all be in these little groups of their own with their youngsters and maybe some sub-adult males like young bulls. So those small family groups would all come together and form the larger herd of elephants. So that's what we're seeing here moving through this beautiful Mopani woodland.
To move to get out of the way, we can definitely do that. Respect that. We're going to slowly just move back because we do want to keep a bit of distance between us and them. So just bear with me as I slowly move back. All we have to do here is we'll just have to be a little bit patient because you'll notice a few of the elephants are actually coming through. There's quite a few coming. Oh, there's this very, very small baby coming as well. Look at that. Okay, what I'm going to do, see the mother's lifting up her trunk. So what they are doing now is they're smelling basically where the water is. So I'm going to just move back a bit. Well, I'm not going to move actually. I'm just having a look right in front of us. There's a youngster pretty soon going to cross the road. If they do get a little bit closer, we will move back, but we just want to keep a comfortable distance between us and these elephants. So let's count how many goes. Okay, I'm just going to lower my head a little bit more here. There's quite a few, so there's 2 that has gone through. Look at how beautiful, look at this one. He's quite keen for a little drink. He's on his way. But how wonderful is this silhouette? You can only and also just compare it. I mean, from the elephants we saw earlier, if you look at this, the height of the tail above the ground, in comparison to this little elephant, it just shows you how small he is. He's basically the size of a big, fully grown warthog. That's how big this little one is. In the middle, there's a little baby, small trunk. See how it's just using its trunk to blow in this. But earlier on, see the way that's lying down? So earlier on, the adults actually stood over it. As it was lying down, there was a bit of shade over the baby. and they just gently move around this baby. But have a look at that. I mean, when we said there's going to be a special Sunday afternoon drive, it's just, I mean, when I look at a baby elephant, it just warms one's heart. Look at that. So he's just sniffing the air. And just imagine for him, earlier on, I can just imagine the mom must have started walking and following the herd, and eventually this little one started getting tired. So the mom stopped just to give this little one a time to breathe. See how he's flicking out his ears? He's probably smelling us. You see, right next to this one, there's another female moving. So I'm just making sure that as soon as the youngster gets a bit closer, we'll move back. Because often at that age, they start chasing birds. They might chase some impala because they know they have moms backing behind them. So we're just having a look at these two youngsters on the side, and you'll just see a lot of the dust as they are like using their feet just to loosen the soil and then grabbing hold of it and flicking it onto themselves. And with the golden light, it's pretty amazing to watch. So you'll see now, Owen, so see there on the bank, there's actually two off to the, oh, look at that one. Actually just sat down on the side of the bank. I think there might be a little itch, or do you think he's trying to maybe just have a quick little nap before he carries on? How beautiful the colors. You'll just see the autumn colors in the back. It's from a tree known as the red bush willow. And then, of course, just look at the color of the dust coming off this elephant. So there's a little elephant now that's actually trying to charge two buffalo bulls. So see that one right there? So there's two buffaloes just laying right of it. And that elephant is trying to intimidate them, but they don't feel very intimidated at all. He probably knows that mom is directly behind. So there's the two buffalo laying down. So that elephant basically tried to chase them off. You can now see, look at how he's using his trunk. There's a bit of grass right next to him. So see, we're just going to go closer to this one here. You'll see there's a bit of grass, but he'll look. And now the buffaloes don't move, and so he's probably going to turn around, just make sure that mom's still behind me. And so this is often behavior you see from elephants. So as they start getting older, they try and build confidence by chasing other animals.
Dino, you have a question?
Yes, Lynn. I was about to get to that question.
Okay. All right, cool.
Now, normally when they do that with impala and birds, and of course they will fly off. But these buffaloes are nearly twice the size of that little elephant, so they're not even budging. So I think he's lost a little bit of interest, realized that they're not going to go anywhere.
So quite an action-packed scene with all these elephants. I see that there was a question with regards to elephant subspecies and why they throw dust on themselves. So you can imagine on quite a hot day like it was here today, if you had to dig up some of the sand and you had to feel the soil temperature underneath the top layer, it's quite a lot cooler in temperature than the top layer of sand. And if you dig your feet in, it actually feels quite nice. So what these elephants would do is they will kick up some of the dust or the sand with their feet to loosen the top layer. And then they'll grab that cooler layer that cooler soil underneath, and they will throw it onto their backs and onto their heads. And that would be quite a nice way to cool them down. Also, what they may do is, I'm not sure if you saw, well, this younger one, you can see it's got quite a lot of water marks. It's a little bit wet, some little bit of wetness on its head. So what they'll do is take their trunk, they'll slurp up some water and throw it on their bodies. That would also cool them down. And then as well as mud. So they could do that with water or mud. Sometimes if they want to try and get rid of some parasites, what they'll do is they will loosen some mud, throw it on their bodies. You can imagine that would be really nice and cool, and it kind of stays cool for quite a while as the moisture evaporates. And then what they'll do is they'll collect dust, as those others were doing, and throw it on their bodies, thereby making essentially almost like a mask, like a mud mask on their skin, which would in turn protect their skin from the harsh sun, from the UV rays. And as well, so giving them a sun protection factor. And then also, as that mud dries on their body, it would also adhere to any of the little parasite, like ectoparasites, like ticks, and things like that. And as it adheres and dries to those ticks, as the mud falls off, the ticks and parasites would fall off with the mud as well. We also do find often trees are really smooth and almost shiny because of the elephants coming past and rubbing their bodies on the trees. So that's some of the reasons why they would throw sand and mud and water on themselves. And then, yes, we do get two subspecies of elephants. There are the African elephants, which we get here, which are the largest species. And then there are the Asian elephants, which are quite a bit smaller. Their ears are a lot smaller than our elephants. And they've got a little bit of a pinkish coloration to the base of their trunks and on their heads. So that's some of the ways you can tell the difference between African and Asian elephants. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions with regard to the elephants? I mean, this was a fantastic sighting with elephants running across the road and that one lying down on its side. Something that it's so funny to see. Elephants are always busy doing something. I mean, it's not very often that you find them doing nothing. Something very interesting. So where I am at the moment, I'm at Pinder Homestead in the northern part of the reserve, and there's quite a nice pool here. And we haven't seen the elephant herds for a really long time on Pinder, just because they tend to head to the southern parts of the reserve. They almost migrate when it rains a lot. So they've been away for a really long time. And today, for the first time, the manager of the lodge saw a huge herd of them drinking at the pool, which they often do. It's amazing. There's a watering hole right in front of the pool, but they decide, no, the pool water is much better. And funny enough, they are quite fussy with their drinking water. So they'd rather drink pool water than water out of a muddy watering hole, which is quite funny. Yeah, and I agree, Kim. Elephants are extremely intelligent. And some of the oldest living mammals can live up to 60 years of age, which is really old, and they've got shares similar developmental stage as humans. With their teen years being around 14, they kind of move off from the herd in the early 20s, and they really reach their maturity and prime in their around early to mid 30s. So something that we share quite similarly with elephants. I saw, Tove, you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question there?
No, I was just going to say that I have a newfound respect for mud masks. If elephants are using them.
Absolutely. I think that's a bit more of an excuse to use them more and more.
It's a proven formula, clearly, then.
Exactly. It goes back millions of years.
Yeah. And Dawn also has a comment. She says that elephants, she believes that elephants have quite a ritual when one dies.
Yes, I see that. So often if elephants do come across the bones of elephants that have died, they often do stop and spend quite a lot of time smelling the bones and feeling the bones. It's quite a special ritual actually that they do. So really intelligent animals, and they do have a connection even to elephants that are no longer around with them. So quite unbelievable animals themselves. Yeah. One of my personal favorites. They're always doing something interesting, always. and yeah, I do see that quick advert.
Yeah,
by Melita.
I'd like to invite Melita to unmute herself and just
Sure.
give her 2 seconds of fame here. Melit?
Hey, awesome.
Thanks, Tove. No, I just thought I'd take the opportunity. We've been working with And Beyond via their broker Crawford Dougal for a couple of years now, and it's been a really fun risk to be involved in. It's quite exciting from time to time, but yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's lovely to see what they're doing in action here and to be enjoying it with them. But yeah, just wanted to tell everyone that it goes beyond them just showing their stuff and what they do. We do have a business relationship with them as well.
I like what you did say, Melit. You said it goes beyond just and beyond.
Yeah.
That was sharp.
That was very sharp.
Must be the whiskey kicking.
Hey. Awesome, Melita. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Tino.
Glad to be associated with you guys as well, and that you're joining us on I know it's not the conventional safari, but at the moment, I mean, this is quite a fantastic platform just to be able to spend some time together, essentially out in the bush. So yeah, thanks again for that.
Yeah. And do you know, I must say, it trumps going to the Kruger National Park and looking for animals for like 6 hours and not finding anything. So I'll take this any day.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge pro to it. I see there's another question from Temba. So Temba, elephants are extremely heavy. Females, a large female elephant can weigh about 4 tons in weight. And a really large elephant bull can weigh around 6 tons, which is incredible just to try and think about.
A lot. Yes.
It's a lot. And I'm not sure if you've seen before, but elephants are able to push over extremely large trees. And you can imagine weighing 6 tons just leaning on a tree, but then weighing 6 tons and then applying their weight and force to a tree. I mean, those trees stand no chance, really.
True.
So yeah, extremely heavy. Rhino in Africa, a white rhino, which is probably around 2.5 tons, maybe close to 3, a really large rhino bull. So yeah, nothing really compares to an elephant.
Thanks for that.
All right, fantastic. If everyone's happy to, I think let's carry on. We'll leave these elephants. We're going to go and have a look at some lion tracks. Just gonna go forward a little bit, if you don't mind.
So earlier on, we had a look at that beautiful herd of elephants, and then from there on, we decided to do a bit of a drive along the river. What we see here is like right in the sand, so it's hard to see from that angle, but I'm trying and point it out as much as I possibly can. Now, right over here, you'll notice it looks like there's 4 little toes and quite a big patch here at the back. So this is a track of a lion. Now, basically, so I'm going to use my hands as a comparison. So if I put my hands here, basically that track is my whole hand like that. So this is most likely from a male lion. And the direction of the track, so the pad, the one here at the back, it has 3 lobes. So 1, 2, 3, which is right over here. And then, of course, the 4 toes, and that's heading up in this direction right over here. And I think that's probably something that we could potentially follow. If not this, maybe even later on this evening, we can come down here with the vehicle, we'll switch it off, and we'll listen to hear if there's any sounds of these lions. Now, often with the male lions, if there are, because it's only, like, if I look around on this area around me, I can see quite a few other tracks. I mean, there's some giraffe tracks right over here. There's some, it looks like could be old buffalo tracks on this side, but it only seems like one set of lion tracks. And this might either be that young Birmingham male, or it could be one of the Ross males. And if lions, especially male lions, are all by themselves, there's a good chance that they might start calling to meet up with the rest of the pride. So this is good news, and maybe later on this afternoon we can come back here, but I think we'll carry on with our drive and see if there's any other signs of them. But it's really nice, interesting, so at least we can see some lion tracks. But I think for now, let's carry on. I would say, like, I'm still in the process of learning how to track. It's not as easy. I thought, like, growing up, like, it would be a lot easier, but I think there's so much skill involved in it. And I think for me, like, I can basically follow tracks if they're on a nice clear path, and if they move through the grass and I don't lose them, I might be able to do it. But sometimes with animals, the more you track, the more you have this intuitive feeling of where are the animals going to go. So I think for me, sometimes if I follow track and I start losing it, I start thinking, okay, where would this lion go to? Okay, so it's a male lion. He probably just came off a carcass. The only water around is nearby, or he might want to join up with the pride. So my next move is probably going to go to where he's most likely going to go. And then I'll go and drive that road, or maybe I'll go walk onto a game trail and see if I can see any other tracks of those signs, of those, or that lion. If I don't, I know that he might be lying down somewhere. And it's just through a little process of elimination until you narrow it down to such a small area that you have to find that lion in there. But it doesn't always work like that. But that's just how it works. So it started from a very young age, growing up on the farm. I was exposed a bit to tracking, but of course, working out, especially with a very experienced tracker, really helped me a lot. And I mean, still, each and every day, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about nature is you can never stop learning. And you never know, like the more I learn about nature, the more I realize I don't know about nature. So
So quite an interesting thing that Nikki here is talking about is the process of tracking, and something that is a huge part of our jobs as rangers or guides. That's how we find our animals, essentially. Unless we're lucky enough to stumble across one, we have to find a fresh track, be able to tell the freshness of it, and be able to follow the tracks and find the animals. And perhaps if we do find them, then take the vehicle off-road towards the animal and spend some time with them. But it's a very, very important part of our jobs, the tracking process. And there's so many factors to it. And it's quite an amazing process if you break it down and you look at the whole process. Very interesting and an ancient art, essentially.
Right, so we were looping around onto the one road, and as we came into the river, there's quite a few giraffes that we found in here. Now you'll notice, like, look at this one right over here. So that tree that it's feeding off is known as a buffalo thorn. So it's a very, it's a tree with a lot of horrible thorns in it, and most of the thorns actually point backwards. So look at how that giraffe is carefully maneuvering around those branches in order not to get, not to prick out its eyes or maybe get caught up in that tree. It's just amazing how they're able to do that. Now, what's interesting though is with this whole group, it looks like it's just a bunch of males that are together now. But so what I wanted to point out here, there's something very, very interesting. So right over here, I have what is known as a little ash bag. So basically, it's a bit of wood ash, tie it up into a sock, and whenever you walk in the bush, you can use it in order to test the wind. So if I would flick this, hopefully you'll see dust coming out of it, but because it's so light, it will show you the direction of the wind. So here we go, 1, 2. See if I do that. So there's some ash coming up, but I don't know if you can notice, but the ash is actually coming from the giraffe, like towards us now. With giraffe, whenever they feed, they tend to feed into the wind. And of course, it plays a role that if there's any predator in front of them, they might be able to smell it. But also the other thing is, apparently trees have a way of communicating. So whenever they feed off the trees like this, it almost like breaks the leaves, and that releases a pheromone that warns all the other trees downwind. So they naturally produce more of a chemical known as tannin. So tannins is basically what the tree uses in order to protect itself. So a giraffe will feed off of it. It produces tannins. It tastes more and more unpleasant. And because of that, the giraffe moves on. And that's the way the tree could protect itself, either through thorns, either through a chemical method, which is, in this case, would be tannins, or biological, could be ants, maybe secrete like a very sticky substance which would attract ants, and then as soon as an animal feeds too much, the ants will then move and then bother that animal. But it's so interesting that every tree then downwind of that will produce higher contents or higher levels of tannins, and that's why giraffes tend to feed into the wind whenever they do feed.
So I see there was a question there about new technologies with regards to tracking animals. And perhaps for management purposes, to track down animals and monitor them. There are, of course, VHF, radio tracking, like collars that they put on animals and that they can track them down. But for our purposes, we try and make the whole tracking and finding the animal, the whole experience together. And if you do get to find fresh tracks of an animal and witness how the whole process plays out and eventually find the animal, it's an incredible experience. So we try not to detract from that for guests and their experiences with us. But of course, for management purposes, there are radio tracking and perhaps drones as well nowadays that you mentioned there, Tove. So yeah, there are some adjustments, but with regards to game viewing, we keep it to the old ways are the best. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions. And we are almost at the end of our evening safari together. I think we're going to cross back to Pinder, where we are back with those cheetah. So if you also have any other questions, please just keep them in mind, and we can chat a bit after we finish. Hey.
A very good afternoon. Just found the two youngsters and mom cheetah that we had this morning, that the two males were harassing. And look at that belly. Look at the belly of the mother, and it looks like they actually ate something this afternoon. So it is going very well with them, much better than this morning. You can see she's now just looking around. I think she's looking for a spot to actually lie down and rest. Look at that belly, how low it's hanging. So actually just got an update that they killed an impala not too far from here. So they've obviously now moved away from the carcass to find a spot to lie down. She's giving a few calls every now and then just to make sure the youngsters follow her. But look at that, all the grooming. Oh my goodness, how precious is that? So what she's doing here is she's trying to get all the blood and the smell of the carcass off of these youngsters and trying to clean them so that also the flies and so on don't irritate them, but it's so that they can get rid of the smell. I'm so happy we found them and that they are all doing very, very well. And they've got full bellies, so I'm sure this female cheetah is very, very happy.
And that concludes our safari together, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And like I mentioned before, your contributions are going towards a really worthy cause with the animals and the community surrounding our reserve. So thank you very much again, and thank you for joining us. I hope you had a fantastic week and continue to enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Wow, Dino.